then East Lyme is a resident trooper town, so for our mobile CAD and RMS, we have $21,000, and then additional $13,000 for the captain system, which I'm not a police, but Brett can explain what captain is, but that total for us is $34,000.
Captain allows the East Lyme Police Department to speak to police departments across the state that participate in the captain system. They can run queries through that. They can run NCIC, the crime computer essentially, through there, and get returns on that.
So as you can see, the Tri-Tech quote was $107,000, and SunGuard was $110,000. Now there wasn't a large difference, but again, we felt that there was a larger benefit to the Tri-Tech product than the SunGuard, so the benefit of it being cheaper was also nice. So we have part-time personnel. Some of us, as you can see, use more part-time personnel than others. We don't see the center using part-time personnel. With the ABCO calculations, we see it as all being full-time. The benefit to that is that that individual is constantly dispatching. Sometimes we could have a part-timer that may not dispatch, as we say, regularly, and that can, as we understand, maybe get a little rusty. So for the total part-time dispatching savings, as you see, is just over almost $154,000.
We addressed the part-time dispatcher question on a trip to Litchfield County Dispatch Center, which is a combined dispatch center that has parts of 18 towns, a police department, City of Torrington Fire. And just as Bill said, this is a profession. In order for the dispatchers to maintain the highest standards, they need to practice their craft just like any of us do in our work. Litchfield County saw the value in not only the part-time dispatcher savings, but the training associated with it. It costs a lot of money to keep people up and running. And if this dispatch center, the regional dispatch center, has to have all three entities. You have to dispatch police, fire, and EMS. And I'm a police officer. We're asking for things constantly. Litchfield County, the people that we spoke to, the dispatchers that we spoke to, really addressed the dealings with the part-time dispatchers and felt that it needed to stay with the full-time professionals. Yep, thank you, Steve. As East Lyme is a resident trooper program, the calls will be transferred as they currently are now. So that would not change. So as the calls come in, they would be transferred to currently Troop C in Tallinn and dealt with the way that they are now. The initial call will be received and dealt with in the way that East Lyme does now.
So, yeah. Thank you. As Steve points out, these numbers are fake. They're just for illustration purposes only. I mentioned in the beginning that we get $250,000 per participating community to offset the costs of starting this up and running it. And there's also, and I believe we get into it later, annual income from different sources. But in the end, there's going to be money that still has to be paid out to make this thing work. So there was a couple of different models and how could we do that, and how could we do that fairly to everybody. And the one reason, the one that came out on top here is basically calls for service. So as you can see in the illustration, if the regional center took an annual call volume of 10,000 calls for service, and they were broken down, as you see here, 2,000 for East Lyme, 3,000 Waterford, and 5,000 for New London. And the center determined that they needed $10,000 at the end to make this thing work. It was divided up as $1 per call, and then you see. So basically, the more calls of service you have in your community, the more you're going to pay into this. So these are the yearly subsidies that are available and where the money's coming from now. So up top you see that we have the $750,000 for the 3 participating communities. The Waterford Center, like I said, I mentioned earlier, dispatches the paramedics, and there's a cost involved to that. So that's the breakdown that is currently in place as far as we know, right?
It's actually 6 and 4 now.
It's actually 6 and 4 now? Okay. So the ambulance funding, each town has a little bit different way of how they finance things. In the town of East Lyme, the East Lyme Ambulance Fund originally purchased the CAD program that's currently being used, and they pay the maintenance costs. Waterford Ambulance pays the town to do dispatching, and in the city of New London, it's all just a part of the city budget. So you can see the breakdown on the regional subsidy on to the right. This is based, Brett has a more better understanding of the actual DSET stuff.
It's important to note that the DSET yearly monies are part of your 911 surcharge on your phone. This is every one of us in the room pays either a home phone or a cell phone, and if you look at your bill, on the bill is the 911 surcharge. That goes into a calculated subsidy by DSET, the Department of Safety Emergency Telecommunications. Yearly, they would pay this regional center the totals that you see on the right, $213,861.44. The CMed, which Bill explained earlier about the ambulance, currently the towns receive monies. The town of Waterford receives monies for dispatching the CMed, almost $27,000. There's a training, again focusing on 21 people. That training would be $6,617. I'm sorry, based on population. And the capital expense, which is a matching amount, is almost $27,000, totaling essentially $300,000 yearly. It's very important to note that the DSET monies that we speak about here, they're statutorily protected, so that that fund can't be taken from. There has been some attempts at doing that. The federal government has stepped in and said, no, the reason that money is there, that it's taken out of your phone bill, is to go into this project. And that's a statewide project for regional PSAPs.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you all set with this slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to speak from New London. My colleagues did such a great job. I didn't have to jump in at all. But I wanted to just summarize, put a cap on this discussion. New London came to this opportunity of looking at regionalizing dispatch after we had worked with Waterford with our radio system. And we started talking about other ways that we could regionalize, other ways we could maximize our resources to enhance public safety, to better communication between our municipalities, and then East Lyme was also, you had gone through a process earlier a few years ago, and we just said, you know what, the three of us regionally, you know, how we are geographic, it makes a lot of sense that we are able to communicate with one another for large events, planned and unplanned, for daily policing, for daily firefighting. We do a lot of mutual aid with one another, especially with fire. And if East Lyme is rolling into New London and they're able to look at the information on their system to know hazards in a building that they're approaching, that's good policy. You know, for police to be able to understand and communicate with one another and coordinate, you know, daily incidences as well as, you know, large events, that's great policy. The thing that was compelling for New London once we started getting into this is that public safety is going to be enhanced, and that the resources to obtain that enhancement is you know, is maximized, because we're going to be buying things together, because we're going to be going through the same contracts together. That was very compelling for us. So, but actually, no matter how much money the three of us spend separately on separate systems, we would never be able to attain that maximized public safety quality, because we'd all be separate. And the key to this is being all together. And there's a lot of crimes that happen through our three communities. You know, we call it the circle of life, and it's just smart to do it, coupled with the fact that the state wants us to regionalize, and so we, you know, you can speak to that. Oh, go closer. You know, the state is looking to have communities regionalized. They're looking to cut down on the amount of dispatch centers that they're supporting. And we wanted to pick our partners. We wanted to do this in a thoughtful way. And when we started looking around at how other communities are accomplishing this, how other entities are, we really wanted to set it up differently, because we wanted to remain in control, everyone that participates in it, the individual municipalities, and not outsource this. This service is too important to give to an LLC or to give to another entity. We all provide it to our communities now. Everybody wants to participate in making sure that the quality of service is there. And so moving forward and having the enabling legislation for us to set this up, we looked at other other models. We looked at Massachusetts. We did some research there, and we came down with SCARA has our regional waste management was set up in the 80s, and we took that legislation and tailored it to meet the needs of the dispatch. So it's receiving quite a lot of affirmation on the state level. They're looking at the legislation that we wrote up as really being a model for the state and enabling this other communities to do this as well. So so we're excited about the opportunity, and I just wanted you to have some background on where New London's coming from with this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Bill. Nice job. I did forget to mention that Mr. Wilson has some frozen pipes and is dealing with that situation, will not be able to attend this evening. I don't know if the board wants to have any questions or comments with relation to this. I'll just give you a little bit of background from my perspective, which got us here, and I've said this before to this board and to many of you out there, is that I'm committed to bring the best possible scenario to the town of East Lyme for this board's consideration and determination as to where they feel that we should move. And this is one of the options that was clearly discussed. We entered into a memorandum of understanding with Waterford and New London to get this process going. I guess that was 1.5 years or so ago. Through the hard work of this committee, you see the result of the exploration of facts and kind of putting together the possibility of how this would work. And it seems to work very well. In the meantime, it should be known that I've talked to the folks at KX and I've talked to people in Montville about the opportunities moving down the road there. I think that this is a good base foundation start. As you heard Mr. Allen talk about the possibility of other towns coming in. I think we, being the 3 towns here, are clearly the furthest along in moving this project or a regional project to fruition. And then, once this gets operational, and I don't know if you addressed a timetable as to when you expect this may happen, but I assume it's 6 months or 8 months or something like that?
Well, we owe you an implementation plan, so
Yeah.
we'll,
Any February for that.
end
Huh?
of February for the implementation plan, and then we'll take it from there, I
Okay.
think, when you look at, if you approve it.
Yeah, okay. So there'll be some time, but there'll be a good possibility that this will get underway, and then other towns will be able to come in, should the vote of the entity, want to go in that direction. I think that will accommodate all the other towns. And then, the other thing is Montville is out there, and they have a potential for regional dispatch. And you heard, as part of this conversation, that there may be down the road a standalone facility, which could be any number of things, depending on what happens. But first things first, and I'd like to commend you for a good, a lot of hard work, which I know went into this. And, thank you for coming. So that being said, that brings the board up to date, and I don't know if you want to ask any questions or make any comments. What's your pleasure?
I would like to go through the report section by section as it was laid out for us in the report that we received in our packets. It seemed to me that would be an orderly way to approach it, just to go by section and do each section at a time, and allow the board to individually question in each of those sections, rather than have one person try to cover the entire report at once.
All right, so that's fine. So we'll start on page 3, which is the introduction and purpose. Is that what or is that all right?
Yeah, I don't have any questions about that. The main body of the report, I have some
Does
questions.
anybody have any questions on that, page 3? Page 4 then would be primary finding and recommendation and selecting our partners. So is there any questions on that page?
Well,
Ms. Hardy?
there were several slides that were presented this evening that were not in our report, so I would like to have the board have copies of those slides so that we could review those.
Is it possible that we can just get copies of the slide presentation?
Okay. I don't think we need the whole PowerPoint, we just need the slides that were not available to us in the report that we received in our packets.
Why don't we just do the whole PowerPoint
All
and
right.
hand it out, and that'll be easier, and then try to
Okay.
figure out what's what, because it looks like there's multiple slides on each page, so, all right?
Okay,
So-
in the $250,000 that would be available for each town, are there restrictions on how that money may be used? Maybe that be used each year to go towards salaries as well as physical expenses?
That $250,000 is a one-time payment to offset the cost of starting up a regional center. So that would not be available annually.
Okay, so there are, to the best of your knowledge, are there annual grants that will be available for this, for communities that are regionalized?
Yeah.
The subsidy, when I spoke about the outlay of the money, that almost $214,000, based on 3 participating municipalities. That is what the state would allocate, increasing each year. And then you couple down with the CMed money, the training money, and the matching grants, totaling the almost, there's 296,000, et cetera.
And,
The only thing is the capital funding cannot be used towards salaries, it can only be used towards a capital expense. But it could be used towards maintenance agreements as a matching fund. But all the other money can be used towards salaries, overtime, and things along those lines.
all right, thank you.
Are you still on that page, Ms. Hardy?
It seems to me that many of the things that are mentioned in the report could be accomplished anyway without, through the idea that we have of mutual aid, without necessarily merging all 3 dispatch centers. In other words, we already have some agreements with mutual aid. We could continue to cooperate with those, such as group purchasing and things, without necessarily all merging into one dispatch center.
We can group purchase, certainly. We would receive no state funding for that. The primary focus of this entire program by the state is the combination of the public safety access points, the 911 centers. They want to eliminate 911 centers because they can no longer continue to fund each one. The equipment in each of our systems provided by the state is old, and they're essentially running out of items to replace them with. That's why they're looking to eliminate this. Yes, we participate in mutual aid. Certainly, we could look forward to making mass purchases. This is not just a monetary savings. We believe that this is a marked improvement in service to all three of our communities. The ability for, if you envision this as a dispatch center, me having a problem taking a call and turning to either Tammy, Steve, or Bill and saying, I have this issue that's going on, instead of having to pick up a phone and having the phone tree, being able to put a broadcast out to all three towns, being able to put a mobile data terminal message out that I'm looking for this car, is what we're looking for, in addition to the monetary savings and grants that we would receive.
Okay, thank you. Now, in part of your presentation, I'm not sure this would be the right section, but in part of your presentation, you addressed one of my questions, which was how does the state police work into this system? And you mentioned that because East Lyme is a resident trooper town, that we would continue to have our calls go through state police. Did I understand that correctly?
Basically, overall, DSET says in order for you to receive the subsidy from the state, you have to dispatch all three entities: EMS, fire, and police. They recognize that there are several resident trooper towns and have said that even though the call is being dispatched for here to be out of Troop C, the 911 is actually coming into the center here and then being transferred out. So it qualifies for the subsidy.
So now, in this 3-regional center, a call comes in, and it comes in from East Lyme. Then the dispatcher is going to have to, for East Lyme only, transfer that call to the state police and then have that radioed back, whereas Waterford and New London would just would bypass that step.
How we envision is, yes, that would be correct. The 911 would go up to the troop. How they do it now is it goes up to the troop and they let their East Lyme cars know where they're going to be dispatched to, so they can get ahead of the game.
So the dispatchers are going to have to be immediately be able to differentiate the procedure.
Well, the simple procedure is you press a button and it transfers it up to Troop C, but they would be able to dispatch the units that are appropriate to the complaint or call for service. Mr. Siri looks like he has it.
No, I'm just agreeing with you, because right now, that's the question I would have. Being involved, obviously, with consolidation in my department recently, we've seen a significant amount of problems just with them keeping it with your own barracks, and going through some of the leaps and bounds with that. I would hope, if this was the case, that a call had to be transferred to the state police, that the dispatcher would say, we've just transferred a call, like it's done now. We've just transferred a call. You might want to start, you're going to be getting a call for an accident or some type of an incident someplace.
I think that it's important to note, yes, Waterford and New London operate a bit differently in their dispatching centers than East Lyme does in the East Lyme dispatching center for police. The transfer of a call will be a learning curve for the Waterford and New London dispatchers in the regional center. What I foresee is that there would be more information relayed in addition to the call transfer. This is what they're used to now.
And I think one of the advantages would be with the CAD system, as you were speaking to earlier. You're gonna have a centralized CAD. Right now, the East Lyme cars have NextGen out in the cars. They have NextGen out in their cars, and I think, I'm not positive, but I think they receive the dispatch through NextGen. This way, they would be running off of. They would have both CAD systems ultimately. I don't know how that would work out, but as the Waterford East Lyme, whoever's dispatching that call to that East Lyme unit, they would get the information instantaneously on their MDT also,
Okay.
which would allow for them to know quicker where they're going.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm set.
You're good on page 4? Page 5? Any comments from anybody on page 5? Page 6?
Yes. I think
Sorry?
this would be a combination of 4.0 and 4.1, the career path. Now, the supervisors that you envision, a supervisor on each shift, is that supervisor also a dispatcher? Is that supervisor
It
filled?
would be a working dispatcher, so working supervisor means, so if they weren't busy, they would do their supervisory duties, but if all of a sudden they took, a large-scale complaint, or, there was an explosion somewhere, they would have to get in the seat and start operating as a dispatcher.
So on each shift, there would be 3 dispatchers plus a supervisor, or
4 dispatchers plus a supervisor.
four dispatchers plus a supervisor?
Correct.
And then the trainer, is that someone who's also a dispatcher and just given additional duties?
At
Or is
this-
that an extra person?
At this time, it was the director of the center / training coordinator, so they would also assist in the training portion of that. The director would have more than one task.
Okay, so the director is not a supervisor? That's a
It
separate
supervises
person.
the entire entity, absolutely. The director of the center supervises the 20 people below them, but also acts as a training personnel.
Okay. And then, what about the quality assurance position?
We ended up shifting that from, so that'll be part of our implementation plan. This initially addressed, we had looked to having a quality assurance person throughout. The numbers didn't work. We can't spend all the money that we'd love to. A supervisor will have to assume the role of a quality assurance person, and they will be on shift doing quality assurance and supervising at the same time.
Okay, thank you. In Waterford, do you currently have supervisory positions?
I'm the communications supervisor. I wouldn't exactly say, as Bill alluded to earlier, no, I'm not in the center all the time. We don't have a civilian supervisor. Everything that we're recommending in this study is that it be a civilian supervisor, not controlled by any emergency services entity, which would allow for, because right now, I work for the police department. So the fire department says, why the police telling the fire department where to go? And we deal with that struggle, daily. I've built a relationship with the fire service, but we recognize that could be a problem and feel that a civilian supervisor is the best way to go in this entity.
So would the supervisors be unionized, or would they would be management? Because if you're going to have them do a dual position of being supervisor and dispatcher,
That would be something that would be worked out through the labor attorneys. We haven't really explored that.
how does that currently work in Waterford?
Waterford is just unionized, so they're just going through contract negotiations. But I work for the police department. They work under emergency management, so they haven't really got there yet.
And how about in New London? Are your dispatchers unionized? And do you have supervisors who are working with them who are not unionized?
It's in the police department, the dispatch center, and we are unionized. The dispatchers are unionized, but also the supervisors are police officers, and they are unionized as well. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
It is important to note that we were not tasked with dealing with the labor issues.
I understand that from the report, but